Ambassador Kethvar adjusted his 4 eyes to focus better on the holographic charts floating above his crystal desk. The blue light from thousands of star systems danced across his scaled face as he reviewed the latest galactic maps. This was his job every month, checking territorial boundaries and trade routes for the Zephyrian Collective. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. He moved his clawed finger across the display, watching as different colored zones appeared and disappeared. The Vailian Empire's red territory showed everything in perfect detail. He could see their mining stations on asteroid belts, their military outposts guarding important jump points, even their smallest research facilities on distant moons. The ancient ethereal collective's purple domains were the same way. Every planet, every space station, every tiny outpost was marked and labeled. Kethvar had been doing this work for 20 years. He knew these maps like the scales on his own arms. But today, something was different. Something that made his diplomatic training kick in with a sharp sense that something was wrong. There was a hole in the galaxy. Not a real hole, of course. Space was still there. But on every map from every species, there was a large empty area marked only with simple text, human territory. No details. No colony markers. No trade routes. No mining operations. Just blank space around what looked like one small solar system. This was strange. Very strange. Humans were not unknown to the galaxy. They had achieved faster-than-light travel about 300 years ago. They traded with some species, though not very much. But every other species, even the smallest ones with just a few planets, had detailed maps of their space. Why not humans? Kethvar pulled up maps from different species to compare. The proud Krillian Defense Force, who mapped every grain of space dust in their territory. The Merchant Nexus Syndicate, who marked every profitable asteroid. The Scientific Archival Republic, who documented every interesting stellar phenomenon. All of them showed the same thing, detailed information everywhere except human space. He tried accessing all the maps. Same thing. He tried military maps, civilian maps, even illegal maps sold by information smugglers. Every single one showed human territory as empty space. His diplomatic instincts were screaming now. In his experience, when everyone agreed to hide something, that something was very important. Kethvar opened a communication channel to the Galactic Cartography Guild. If anyone would know why human space was unmapped, it would be them. The guild was responsible for creating and maintaining all official star charts used by member species. The holographic image of Guild Master Zenthara appeared above his desk. The ancient being looked like a giant octopus with too many tentacles and eyes that glowed within a light. Zenthara was old, even by galactic standards. It had been mapping space since before most current species had achieved interstellar flight. Ambassador Kethvar, Zenthara said, its voice carrying the weight of centuries. What can the guild help you with today? I have questions about the human territory maps, Kethvar said directly. He had learned long ago that being straightforward worked best with the guild master. Something changed in Zenthara's glowing eyes. The tentacles that had been moving in gentle patterns suddenly went very still. What kind of questions? The guild master asked slowly. Why are there no internal details? Every other species has complete territorial maps. Trade routes, colonies, industrial sites. But human space is completely blank. Is this an error in our databases? Zenthara's tentacles began to tremble slightly. In all his years dealing with the guild master, Kethvar had never seen such a reaction. The ancient being was known for being calm and professional no matter what crisis arose. There is no error, Ambassador, Zenthara said, but its voice was strained now. Not the confident tone Kethvar was used to hearing. Then why the blank space? Surely humans have colonies, space stations, industrial facilities like everyone else. The trembling in Zenthara's tentacles got worse. Several of the smaller appendages wrapped around each other as if the guild master was trying to comfort itself. We map what we are permitted to map, Ambassador, Zenthara said quietly. Some boundaries require special consideration. Special consideration? What does that mean? But instead of answering, Zenthara's image flickered and then disappeared. The communication had been cut from the other end. Kethvar stared at the empty space where the guild master's hologram had been. In 20 years of diplomatic work, he had never had anyone hang up on him during an official inquiry. Especially not the head of the Cartography Guild, who was usually happy to discuss mapping details for hours. He looked back at his charts, at that conspicuous empty space labeled human territory. The blank area seemed bigger now, more ominous. What could make the galaxy's most experienced cartographer tremble? What could cause every species to agree to leave part of space unmapped? Kethvar's 4 eyes focused on the human solar system at the center of that empty space. It looked so small, so ordinary. One yellow star with several planets. Nothing special about it from the outside. But something was hidden there. Something that made ancient, powerful beings afraid to draw detailed maps. His curiosity, trained and sharpened by decades of diplomatic work, was fully awake now. The empty space on his charts was no longer just blank territory. It was a mystery that demanded answers. And Ambassador Kethvar had never walked away from a mystery in his life. Kethvar told himself he was asking questions about humans for diplomatic reasons. The Zephyrian collective needed to understand all galactic territories for proper trade negotiations. That was his job, after all. It had nothing to do with personal curiosity about the strange empty space on every star map. He started small. During the weekly Galactic Council sessions, he would slip casual questions into normal conversations. Just innocent diplomatic inquiries. Nothing that would seem suspicious or urgent. The first person he approached was General Thaxmore of the Valerian Empire. The Valorians were warriors who had never lost a war in their entire recorded history. They were proud of their military strength and loved to talk about their victories and conquests. If anyone would have information about human territory, it would be them. Kethvar waited until after a routine discussion about trade route security. "General," he said casually, "has the Empire ever considered expanding operations near human space? The territory seems underutilized." The change in General Thaxmore was instant and shocking. The proud warrior, who normally stood tall with his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest, suddenly seemed smaller. His red eyes, which usually burned with confidence, flickered nervously around the room. "The Valerian Empire has pressing matters in the Outer Rim," Thaxmore said quickly. His voice, normally a deep roar that commanded attention, was almost a whisper. "Military exercises. Very important. Must focus on other areas." Before Kethvar could ask another question, the general gathered his battle plans and left the council chamber. In 300 years of diplomatic records, no Valerian general had ever retreated from a simple conversation. The next week, Kethvar tried a different approach. Sage Quilandra of the Ethereal Collective was ancient and wise. Her species was known for their calm, thoughtful responses to any situation. They meditated on problems for years before speaking. Nothing surprised them or made them uncomfortable. During a break in discussions about mineral rights, Kethvar asked, "Sage Quilandra, your people have explored the galaxy for thousands of years. Have you ever conducted territorial surveys near human space?" The ethereal being, who looked like a floating cloud of silver light with gentle eyes, went completely still. For several minutes, she said nothing. Her light dimmed until she was barely visible. Other council members began to stare as the silence stretched on and on. Finally, Quilandra's form brightened again. "The weather patterns on Nexus Prime are quite interesting this season," she said, as if Kethvar had asked about meteorology instead of human territory. "I believe we should discuss grain imports from the agricultural worlds." She refused to acknowledge any further questions about humans for the rest of the session. Kethvar's diplomatic training kicked in. These were not normal responses. Both the Valerian general and the ethereal sage had shown signs of fear. Real, genuine fear. But what could frighten warriors who had never lost a battle and ancient beings who had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations? He decided to try the information brokers next. The Nexus Syndicate were merchants who sold data to anyone willing to pay. They had no loyalty except to profit. Their motto was "Every secret has a price." If military powers and ancient sages would not talk, maybe simple greed would work. Broker Prime Zektal was exactly what Kethvar expected, a thin, quick creature with too many fingers and eyes that constantly calculated profit margins. The broker operated from a small office filled with data storage devices and communication equipment. Information was his business, and business was always good. "Ambassador Kethvar," Zektal said with the fake enthusiasm of a natural salesman. "What information can the Syndicate provide for you today? Star charts? Trade routes? Military intelligence? We have excellent prices this week." "I need detailed information about human territory," Kethvar said directly. "Internal maps, colony locations, industrial facilities. Whatever you have." Zektal's many eyes stopped moving. The calculating expression on his face disappeared, replaced by something Kethvar had never seen from a Nexus broker, genuine concern. "Human territory?" Zektal asked quietly. "Yes. I can pay very well. Say, 50,000 credits for comprehensive data? The broker's thin fingers drummed nervously on his desk. 100,000. Still no. 500,000 credits. Full payment in advance. Zektal stood up quickly, his chair scraping against the floor. Ambassador, some knowledge carries a price that cannot be measured in credits. The syndicate does not trade in human territorial data. We never have. We never will. He walked to his office door and opened it. I think our business is concluded. Kethvar had never been thrown out of a broker's office before. Especially not when offering enough money to buy a small space station. Over the following weeks, he tried approaching other species. The Scientific Archival Republic, who documented everything in the galaxy, claimed to have no relevant data about human space. The Krillian Defense Force, who monitored all military activities, suddenly developed urgent business elsewhere whenever humans were mentioned. Even the minor species, who usually loved to share gossip and rumors, went silent when human territory came up in conversation. Every reaction was the same. Fear. Uncomfortable silence. Quick changes of subject. Urgent business somewhere else. Kethvar began keeping notes. Not official diplomatic records, but personal observations. The pattern was clear and disturbing. Every major species in the galaxy knew something about human space that they would not discuss. Something that made ancient sages go silent, proud warriors retreat, and greedy merchants refuse money. But what could frighten the entire galaxy into such coordinated silence? The empty space on his star chart seemed to grow larger every time he looked at it, like a hole in reality that everyone pretended not to see. The weeks of silence and fear from every species had pushed Kethvar to desperation. If no one would talk openly about humans, he needed to find someone who might speak privately. Someone with access to old records and historical data that might explain the galaxy's strange behavior. Historian Prime Veltar was his last hope. The keeper of the Great Archive was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, responsible for maintaining records that went back thousands of years. If anyone knew the truth about human territory, it would be Veltar. Arranging the meeting was not easy. Kethvar could not use official diplomatic channels. Too many people would ask questions. Instead, he sent a coded message through an old friend who worked in the archive's lower levels. The message was simple: need to discuss historical territorial disputes. Urgent diplomatic matter. 3 days later, he received a reply that made his scales tingle with nervousness. Level 7. Midnight. Come alone. Tell no one. Level 7 of the Great Archive was deep underground, far below the public research areas. Kethvar had never been that far down before. The elevator ride seemed to take forever, passing floor after floor of restricted sections and classified storage areas. The deeper he went, the older and more sensitive the information became. When the elevator doors finally opened, he found himself in a dimly lit corridor lined with security doors. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the weight of ancient secrets. His footsteps echoed eerily as he walked toward the meeting point. Historian Prime Veltar was waiting in a small chamber at the end of the corridor. The ancient being looked like a cross between a giant spider and a tree, with multiple thin arms that ended in delicate fingers, and dozens of small eyes scattered across its bark-like face. Veltar was old even by galactic standards, having lived for over 2,000 years. But tonight, the historian looked frightened. Its many eyes kept darting toward the shadows, and its usually steady hands were trembling slightly. Ambassador Kethvar, Veltar whispered, its voice barely louder than breathing. You should not have come here. This place is not safe for such discussions. I need answers, Kethvar said quietly. Everyone in the galaxy acts afraid when humans are mentioned. Why? Veltar's eyes closed, all of them at the same time. It was something the historian did when accessing very old memories. You are asking about the boundary wars. Boundary wars? I have never heard of any boundary wars. Of course you have not. Veltar's voice was full of sadness. No one speaks of them. No one writes about them. No one teaches them in schools. The galaxy has agreed to forget. The historian moved to a wall panel and pressed several buttons with its thin fingers. The chamber's lights dimmed even further, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. Ancient star charts materialized in the air, showing the galaxy as it had been 300 years ago. This was when humans first achieved faster-than-light travel, Veltar explained, pointing to a small area that showed human space much smaller than it was now. They were new to interstellar flight. Primitive by our standards. Single ships exploring nearby systems. No weapons. No defenses. Just curiosity and simple technology. Kethvar studied the old charts. Human territory had been tiny then, just a few solar systems around their home world. The galaxy saw an opportunity, Veltar continued. A young species with no protection and potentially valuable resources. Some species wanted to guide them, bring them into galactic civilization properly. Others wanted to simply take their territory and relocate them to reservation worlds. That sounds like standard expansion policy for new species. Yes. It should have been simple. Veltar's form shuddered, bark-like skin rippling with remembered fear. 7 major species participated in the expansion effort. The Valyrian Empire wanted to establish military bases in human space. The Ethereal Collective wished to study human development under controlled conditions. The Krillian Defense Force saw strategic value in the territory. The Nexus Syndicate wanted trading rights and resource extraction permits. The historian paused, its many eyes opening to stare directly at Kethvar. My own people, the Archival Republic, wanted to document human society before it was changed by galactic contact. We thought we were being scholarly and helpful. What about the other 2 species? Veltar's eyes closed again. The hegemony of swords and the Crystal Dominion. We do not speak their names anymore. They no longer exist as independent civilizations. A chill ran down Kethvar's spine. What happened to them? The same thing that happened to all of us, Veltar whispered. We underestimated what humans could become when pushed. The historian activated different sections of the holographic display, showing fleet movements and battle plans from 3 centuries ago. It was supposed to be a coordinated effort. 7 fleets approaching human space simultaneously. Quick, efficient, minimal casualties. Standard procedure for integrating primitive species. But something went wrong. Everything went wrong. Veltar's voice was barely audible now. We do not speak of it because those who witnessed it are still alive, still traumatized. The humans did not just win, Ambassador. They demonstrated something that made every species in the galaxy collectively decide that some territories are better left alone. What could possibly frighten 7 major civilizations? Veltar turned off the holographic display, plunging the chamber back into dim light. That is what the survivors will tell you. But I warn you, Ambassador, once you know the truth, you will understand why we choose to forget. Some knowledge is too dangerous to remember. The ancient historian moved toward the chamber door. If you truly must know what happened during the Boundary Wars, I can arrange for you to meet the survivors. But I cannot promise you will still want answers after you hear what they have to say. Veltar led Kethvar through narrow corridors that did not appear on any map of the Great Archive. They walked past storage rooms filled with documents that were marked with warning symbols in dozens of languages. The air grew warmer as they descended, and Kethvar could hear the quiet sounds of daily life, voices talking softly, the clink of eating utensils, someone humming a sad melody. This section is not in our official records, Veltar explained quietly. It does not exist according to archive policy. But some knowledge requires guardians, and some guardians require protection. They stopped at a heavy door marked only with a simple sign, residential area, authorized personnel only. Veltar pressed its hand against a scanner, and the door slid open silently. Inside was a comfortable living area that looked like a small village. There were apartments built into the walls, common areas with soft furniture, and a central garden where strange plants from different worlds grew together in peaceful harmony. About 20 beings from various species lived here, all of them elderly, all of them carrying themselves with the careful movements of people who had seen too much. Welcome to the sanctuary, Veltar said. Home to the last survivors of the Boundary Wars. An old Krillian male approached them. Kethvar recognized the species immediately, tall, muscular beings with 4 arms and thick gray skin that could stop most small weapons. This one wore simple clothes instead of armor, and his movements were slow and thoughtful rather than aggressive. But something was wrong with his posture. He carried himself like a warrior who had forgotten how to fight. This is Elder General Morkan, Veltar said gently. He commanded the Krillian Defense Force during the Boundary Wars. The old general looked at Kethvar with tired eyes. Another one who wants to know what happened, he said, his voice carrying no anger, only sadness. Veltar warned you, I hope. Some stories change the people who hear them. I need to understand, Kethvar said. The entire galaxy acts afraid when humans are mentioned. Why? Morkan gestured to comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Other survivors began to gather, an ethereal being that glowed with soft silver light, a thin creature that looked like it was made of living crystal, and several others that Kethvar did not recognize. We sent our finest fleet, Morkan began, settling into his chair with the careful movements of someone much older than his years. 12 dreadnoughts. Each ship could destroy a planet if needed. The pride of our military. We had never lost a battle in our entire history. He stared at his hands as he spoke. Our mission was simple. Establish control over human space. Set up military bases. Relocate the humans to a smaller area where they could be properly supervised. Standard procedure for primitive species. What went wrong? Kethvar asked. Everything. Nothing. I still do not understand. Morkan's voice became distant, as if he was seeing something far away. We encountered a single human exploration vessel. Not a warship. Just a small research ship with maybe 20 crew members. We sent a message demanding their surrender. The old general paused, his 4 hands clenching and unclenching slowly. They sent a message back. Very polite. They said they were sorry we felt we needed to threaten them, and they hoped we could find a better way to solve whatever problem we were having. One of the other survivors, a being made of living crystal, made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Tell him about the weapons, she said in a voice like breaking glass. Our weapons stopped working, Morkan said simply. Not destroyed. Not damaged. They just changed. Our plasma cannons had been converted into agricultural irrigation systems. Our torpedo launchers were growing flowers. Real flowers, Ambassador. Beautiful ones. Kethvar felt his scales prickle with confusion. How is that possible? A new voice spoke up. An ethereal being that glowed with soft light floated closer to their circle. I am Sage Whisperia, she said, her voice like distant music. I was there when my people tried to use psionic weapons against the humans. Psionic weapons? Mental attacks. We can project thoughts and emotions directly into other minds. Usually it causes confusion, fear, sometimes madness. It has never failed against any species we have encountered. She paused, her light dimming slightly. The humans turned our psionic assault into a method for interspecies communication. Suddenly, we could understand their thoughts and emotions perfectly. They were genuinely confused about why we wanted to fight. They kept asking if we needed help with something. Another survivor joined the conversation. This one was small and quick, with too many fingers and large eyes that moved constantly. Merchant Captain Fluxere of the Nexus Syndicate, she said, her voice trembling slightly. We tried to use gravity weapons. Devices that could crush ships by manipulating space itself. What happened? The humans turned them into mining tools. Our weapons became devices for efficiently extracting resources from asteroids. They sent us a message thanking us for the helpful technology and asking if we wanted to discuss trade agreements. Kethvar looked around the circle of survivors. All of them had the same expression, a mixture of bewilderment and something that might have been awe. I do not understand, he said. How did they do these things? General Morkan leaned forward. That is what terrifies us, Ambassador. We fought with superior numbers, better weapons, thousands of years of military experience. The humans fought with something we had never encountered before. What? Absolute creative adaptation. Every threat became an opportunity. Every weapon became a tool for growth. They did not defeat us, they transformed the entire situation into something beneficial. Sage Wisperia's light pulsed gently. They made us understand that we were thinking too small about what intelligence could achieve. We thought intelligence meant better weapons, stronger ships, more efficient killing. The humans showed us intelligence meant finding ways to make everything better for everyone. Captain Fluxare nodded rapidly. The worst part was not defeat. It was realizing we had never truly understood what warfare could become. Or what peace could become. Or what anything could become in the hands of minds that truly creative. General Morkan stood up slowly. So we made a choice, Ambassador. All of us. Every species that encountered the humans during those wars. We decided that some territories are better left alone. Not because we fear human weapons, but because we fear human potential. The old Krillian warrior looked directly at Kethvar. Now you know why the maps are empty. Now you understand why we choose not to remember. After weeks of listening to fearful whispers and ancient warnings, Kethvar could not stop thinking about the empty space on his star charts. The survivor stories had been disturbing, but they had also made him more curious than ever. What kind of beings could turn weapons into farming tools? What kind of minds could transform a military attack into a peaceful conversation? His diplomatic training told him to file a report and forget about the whole matter. The galaxy had clearly decided that human space should remain unmapped, and there were good reasons for that decision. But his personal curiosity was stronger than his professional caution. He told his crew they were conducting a routine mapping survey near the outer rim. It was not exactly a lie, they would be mapping, and they would be near the rim of known space. He just did not mention that they planned to approach the one area every other species avoided. The journey to human space took 3 days. As they got closer, Kethvar expected to encounter warning signals, defensive platforms, or at least some kind of border control. Every other major species marked their territory clearly and demanded identification from approaching ships. But there was nothing. No warnings. No weapons. No demands to state their business. Just empty space and distant stars. "Ambassador," his pilot said nervously, "our sensors are detecting a ship approaching. Single vessel, small size, no visible weapons." On the main screen, a modest ship appeared. It was clearly human in design, smooth curves instead of angular military shapes, with what looked like observation windows instead of weapon ports. The ship moved slowly and peacefully, like someone taking a casual stroll through space. The communication channel activated before Kethvar could even decide what to say. "Hello there," came a cheerful human voice. "This is Captain Jiwon Kim of the human exploration ship Harmony. We do not get many visitors out here. Would you like to come aboard for coffee?" Kethvar stared at the communication panel. In 30 years of diplomatic contact with dozens of species, no one had ever invited him for coffee within the first 10 seconds of meeting. "This is Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Collective," he said carefully. "We are conducting a routine survey of this area." "How wonderful." Captain Kim replied with genuine enthusiasm. "We love meeting new people. Please, dock with our ship. I will have fresh coffee ready." Against every rule of diplomatic protocol, Kethvar found himself walking through the airlock of a human vessel. He had expected military corridors, weapon storage areas, and the cold efficiency of a warship. Instead, he found himself in what looked like a comfortable living area with soft furniture, artwork on the walls, and the pleasant smell of something cooking. Captain Kim was waiting for him with a warm smile. She was a middle-aged human woman with kind eyes and graying hair tied back in a simple style. She wore casual clothes instead of a military uniform, and she carried herself with the relaxed confidence of someone who had never worried about being attacked. "Welcome aboard the Harmony," she said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "Please, sit down. How do you like your coffee?" I am not sure what coffee is," Kethvar admitted. "Oh, you are in for a treat. Coffee is one of our favorite beverages. Very stimulating. Helps with thinking." She poured a dark liquid from a metal container into a small cup. "Try just a little first. Different species react differently to our foods." The coffee was strange but pleasant, bitter and sweet at the same time, with a warmth that spread through his body. As he sipped the unusual drink, Kethvar looked around the ship's common area. Other humans were present, but none of them seemed concerned about having an alien visitor aboard. They continued their activities, reading, working on small devices, having quiet conversations. "Your galaxy colleagues do not visit often," Captain Kim said, settling into a chair across from him. "We understand why. That whole business centuries ago was unfortunate. The boundary wars." Captain Kim's expression became thoughtful and slightly sad. "We did not want conflict. When your fleets arrived, we simply solved the problem. Every weapon became something constructive. Every aggressive action became an opportunity for cooperation. We did not defeat anyone, we transformed the situation." "How?" Kethvar asked. "The survivors say you changed their weapons without even touching them." "Oh, that." Captain Kim waved her hand casually. "We saw that they were trying to hurt us, so we fixed their equipment to do something helpful instead. It seemed like the obvious solution." A young man approached their table. "Captain, sorry to interrupt. I am Minho Park, ship's physicist. Are we having a first contact situation?" "Dr. Park, this is Ambassador Kethvar. He is curious about our territory." Dr. Park's face lit up with excitement. "Wonderful. I love meeting new people. I am working on some equations about space-time manipulation while composing a symphony about quantum mechanics. Would you like to see?" He showed Kethvar a device covered with numbers and symbols that made no sense. But somehow, looking at the equations made Kethvar's head hurt in a way that felt like understanding something too large for his mind. "How can you work on physics and music at the same time?" Kethvar asked. "Why would I not?" Dr. Park looked genuinely confused. They are both about patterns and harmony. Mathematics is just another kind of music. As Captain Kim gave him a tour of the ship, Kethvar met more humans. Engineers who treated impossible technical problems like fun puzzles. Artists who painted with light itself. Researchers who studied the behavior of stars as if they were watching interesting animals. All of them were friendly and welcoming. None of them seemed to think there was anything unusual about their abilities. They talked about revolutionary breakthroughs in physics, art, and philosophy as if they were discussing the weather. You do not guard your borders with weapons, Kethvar realized. Why would we? Dr. Park asked, looking genuinely puzzled. We simply exist as we are. Captain Kim nodded. The galaxy maps end at human space not because we forbid entry, Ambassador. They end because every species instinctively recognizes that humanity represents something beyond their current understanding of what intelligence can become. As Kethvar prepared to return to his own ship, he finally understood the truth. The galaxy's fear was not of human aggression, it was of human potential. These beings did not think like any other species. They approached every problem with creativity that seemed impossible. They turned weapons into tools, conflicts into opportunities, and limitations into new possibilities. Will you update your maps now? Captain Kim asked gently as they stood by the airlock. Kethvar looked at his personal data pad, at the sensor readings he had collected during his visit. Then, quietly, he deleted all the information about human space. Some mysteries, he said, are meant to remain mysteries. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Captain Kim smiled. You are welcome to visit again anytime, Ambassador. We always enjoy making new friends.